What is going on? I am Cole and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, this is a video where I go over my most anticipated comics for each new comic book day. And this time we'll be talking about March 29th, 2023. So if you want to see what I'm looking forward to reading, make sure you stick through this intro.
Most anticipated comic books. Most anticipated comic books from Cole.
One of the things that I love to do on this video is talk about the one website, and that website is League of Comic Geeks. The reason that I do this is what I use to get my information. The reason that I kind of want to always bring this up is that sometimes I might bring you a comic that maybe doesn't actually come out. It's not because I'm not doing my research. Sometimes just when I put this out as early as I can, this is the best place to get that information. And unfortunately, sometimes you just don't always get the right stuff. I think last week I had How I Became a Shoplifter, number 3 on my list, because it said that it was out. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to, but sometimes I don't know. I think I might have even looked at previews and maybe gotten a second opinion there. But, you know, that's one of those things where occasionally I use this site, and while it is the best, I think, because it has everything there, when I'm releasing this video as early as I am, sometimes I do have some wrong information there. Another thing I'd like to let you know is I do have my League of Comic Geeks down there, so if you want to join me and follow me, that'd be great. I don't use the site a ton, but as I'm starting to work on making my blog, I might take some of those small reviews that I do, move them over here, and try and become more active on that platform. If you watched last week's video, I had Joe Love/Talks Comics on my show, and I know that he uses that site a lot. Usually when I'm looking up certain books, I see comments by him, so I want to get into that a little bit more, just because I think that there's maybe another community that is really fun to interact with over there. But if you are here, you probably don't care about League of Comic Geeks as much as you care about what comics I'm actually reading. So now that I have that out of the way, let's go into some of the books that I do. Just to let you get a little bit of a hang of how I do things, I like to separate the ongoings and the number ones. So I'm going to start with ongoings this week. We're going straight to Saga number 63. If you know me, you know I love Saga. This is from writer Brian K. Vaughan, artist Fiona Staple. Every time there's an issue of Saga out, it is most likely going to make my list. The tagline for this one is this hell? That's all we have. It's short, it's sweet, it's Saga. It's one of my favorite books on the shelf. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend checking out volume 1 because I think it is that great of a book. The next ongoing we have is The Approach, number 5. This is from Boom Studios, writer Josh A. Hurley, also writer Jeremy Hahn, artist Jesus Harvas. This is just a good old-fashioned horror tale. You know, it's something that you've kind of seen before. There's a little bit of a weirdness going on with who's kind of possessed by this like giant monster, but overall, I've been digging this. I know that, you know, I've had a lot of people recommend this book, and that's why I started checking it out. I know Bruce over at Bruce and Stephanie Comics was one. I think Brian LCS has also been checking this out, and I know that Matt over at Comics by the Bay loved this book, so it's kind of been one of those books that I just kind of got into a little bit later, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. It has been a fun little horror ride, and it's only 5 issues. I think that the trade will be coming out soon, so if you're looking for a horror book that is collected in trade, I would probably recommend The Approach from Boom Studios. We'll see how this ending goes, because I think that this 5th issue is the final one, but I think that it overall is going to be an awesome book. There was a book that I really hyped up the number 1, and I'm super pumped for the number 2. This is Local Man number 2. We got writer Tim Seeley, also writer Tony Fleece. I think that they kind of do a swappity swap where one does the art for the other and the other does the art for the other. That was a weird way of saying they do art for each other and they both write. But I've been digging that first issue. This kind of takes the love and the feel of those 90s Image comics, but makes them a little bit modern and more realistic. The idea is that there's this guy who becomes like a loosely an Avenger, and he ends up getting kicked off the team. I don't even think that we really know, but we know that his parents are disappointed with him. The town that he lives in is pretty disappointed in him. So it's probably something pretty big, but I'm excited to kind of learn where we're going with this. He's also kind of brought his rival or main villain nemesis comes back into his hometown, and it's just kind of this weird thing, and you're kind of dealing with what happens when you break up with a superhero organization. I'm really excited to see where the second issue goes, and yeah, it's just been an awesome ride. And when I was explaining this video earlier, I did not really mention that I also bring in a guest every single week to talk about their most anticipated comic. So today is going to be a little bit different. I have brought in writer CJ Hudson to talk about a book that he is putting out. So I'm going to skip it over to him. We're going to see what book he has coming out and see what's going on.
CJ Hudson here, writer of Lycan, coming to you from Band of Bards, out on March 29th, so just a few weeks away. I'm hoping everyone will check out this one-shot, build up into a new universe. I'm describing it as a primer and a mix of werewolves meets Desperate Housewives. I know that sounds kind of funny, but that's honestly what it is. Building up a world where these suburban moms are living out with their families, but unbeknownst to many people, they are in fact werewolves. So there's a lot of good lore that I'm building up here, and hopefully going to tell many more werewolf stories after this. So thanks as always for your time and checking out this great series from myself, Mary Landro, and obviously a great alternative cover from Rio Burton.
So CJ did share this book with me. I already read it. I had to add this onto my pull list. This is a very fun story that has, like he says, it's Desperate Housewives meets werewolves, and it really does that. I think it's a great start to this universe, and I'm really hoping that Band of Bards starts to bring this in and makes it in. I know that I've heard a lot of people talk about maybe the oversaturation, about books with the zombies or vampires, and it would be just really nice again to get kind of more of a modern tale with some vampires. I think this is a great starting issue, and if your shop has it, I really recommend checking it out because I really enjoyed it. I think that it should be available still on Band of Bards website, which I will have down below. So if you need a copy too, it might be worth checking it out there. I ended up personally getting the variant cover because I just loved that cover. All right, and now we are to the number one. So let's get into them. The first one is going to be The Ambassadors. This is from Mark Miller. Once again, that is Mark Miller and artist Frank Quietly. I don't really know what to think of this book. I really like Frank Quietly's art. I know that some people don't. It's kind of a very, he kind of has an art style that you either love or you hate. I'm really into it, and I think that there's other artists that are starting to lean into this style artwork, and I really dig it. I've been kind of cold on Mark Miller for a while. I think he has a lot of good ideas, but usually I've just never been impressed with the endings of stories. But after reading Nemesis and just kind of reading Nightclub 2, I've been kind of back into him. So I think maybe he took a little bit of break. Maybe he got revitalized, and maybe he's starting to put out some awesome stories again. I know with that Netflix deal, that was probably a lot for him to do, but I'm pretty excited. So let's read this synopsis, because I think this is one that is kind of wild, and maybe it's going to sell people. But this says the most ambitious comic book of all time is finally here. Imagine you could give superpowers to 6 people in a world of 8 billion. Who do you choose? Join 6 of the greatest artists in the industry for an enormous story about ordinary people from around the world, explaining why it should be them. The first story features artworks from superstar Frank Quietly. So that is something cool that I just learned too, that there is going to be a different artist on each of these issues. Sometimes that can be a little jarring and hard to see, but I think if you're reading this in a monthly book as opposed to the trade, it's usually a little bit harder to really notice the change in art, because as you're picking up each single issue and maybe reading them monthly, you're not actually seeing that change. But I think The Ambassadors is going to be great. Is it going to be the most ambitious comic book of all time? Let's find out. One of the things that I usually say on here is that I have really put a lot of my DC stuff on hold. I've mainly been reading on DC UI Ultra, and it has really changed me, and I've enjoyed it because I've been able to read some stuff that maybe I wouldn't read, but also still enjoy the stuff that I would want to read. But there are a few books that I still really want to check out, and I will still get when they come out. One of those books is going to be Unstoppable, Doom Patrol #1. The Doom Patrol is one of my favorite teams teams, and I am just excited to have them come back. We're getting this from writer Dennis Culver, artist Chris Burnham, colorist Brian Reber, and yeah, I love the Doom Patrol. They're one of my favorite groups. Ever since I read Grant Morrison's run on Doom Patrol, I really loved these characters. They're just a weird misfit group of people. I think the TV show brought them to light for a lot of people that maybe don't know the Doom Patrol. And I think from what I know, this should be a pretty good jumping off point. I think this is just a mini. I could be mistaken. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But one thing I got to shout out is one of my favorite recent cover artists, Nathan Scherzy, is doing a variant cover for this. This is just a B cover, and I love this. You've got Elastigirl just kind of up here while the boat's passing by, and you don't really notice at first that she is ginormous until you see it, but I am pumped for the Doom Patrol. What are your thoughts on the Doom Patrol? Are you a fan? Are you grabbing this book? I think it's worth checking out if you like weird misfit teams. The next book up on my number ones is Don't Spit in the Wind, number one. This is from Mad Cave Studio, writer-artist Stefano Cardicelli. We got colorist and letterer Dan Lee. I'm pretty pumped for this. This is the new Mad Cave book. I know in some of the promotions that they were sending out, they sent a little free bag of coffee samples, so I don't think that my shop got that, and if they did, I probably missed out on it, but that is one thing that I thought was kind of cool that they were doing to help promote this book. But let me quick read the synopsis for you because I think it will help sell it. In the distant future, humanity has escaped the shell of what was once a lush, beautiful earth that has instead been left dumping ground full of trash, smog, and pollution. One man's trash is another man's living space. Since Earth became inhospitable, humanity escaped ages ago to live in a space station floating above the atmosphere. Now Travis and his crew of garbage men are tasked with cleaning up the mountains of toxic waste, working for a company called Atomic Bros Incorporated to create a clear world. But when one of the Travis's crew member goes missing near an old nuclear facility, Travis's job becomes a bit more complicated. So I don't really know what to expect from here. This sounds pretty fun. I only see 2 issues of this on League of Comic Geeks. I'm not sure how long this is going to go, but Matt Cave has been putting out some fun stuff. I know Stefano does some art on books that I've read in the past, and I really enjoyed those. So I'm interested in checking out this new number one. And the final book we have up here is Granite State Punk, number one. This is from writer Travis Gibb, who has been on this show with artist Patrick Biermeyer. And I will actually have a link up here. Just kidding. It'll be up here. And you can check out when I spoke to Travis about this. We did a little pitch for this book when it was coming out for FOC. So if you want to hear a little bit more about Granite State Punk, I think it is worth checking that out. I've talked about Coins of Judas on here a few times. Travis is a friend of mine, and I really enjoy a lot of the books that he has coming out. I've read Granite State Punk because this was originally Kickstarted, but now it is out there on Scout Comics. So if you want to check out a new indie story, this is just a one-shot, so it might be worth checking out. There are going to be more books in this universe, but to my knowledge, each of those are kind of their own thing in a separate type of one-shot story. So I highly recommend checking this out. I think this book even made it into Key Collector app a while before it came out. So if that is something that you are interested in, I'd highly check out this book. And those have been my most anticipated comics for the week of March 29th, 2022. As always, I like to tell you that if you're interested in doing a type of show like this, please let me know. I love having new guests on, talking about comic books that they love, whether it be a cover that's coming out, whether it just be a story, or even a trade paperback. And speaking of trade paperbacks, this Tuesday, Blake and I are going to be talking about Survival Street from Dark Horse Comics. I'll have the little thing over here. You can check it out. This is supposed to be like Sesame Street, but I think like a post-apocalyptic world of that. So I think this should be a fun show. And if you haven't been checking out Blake and I read a book, it has been a pretty fun series where we talk about a lot of these trade paperbacks that are coming out. And we usually give away that trade paperback at the end of the show. So if you're interested in Survival Street, I highly recommend checking it out because worst case scenario, you could be entered in a situation where you get that trade paperback. So as always, I have been Cole. A wise man once said, ride on and peace. Now, I know I just said goodbye, but if you hit this head right here, you'll be able to subscribe to me. Over here, I'll have a video of me unboxing some stuff, and down here is my playlist for most anticipated comics. So if you want to check out some other stuff that I've loved throughout the last year, there is a ton of backlog over there. It is worth checking out if you want to get maybe some reading recommendations, or maybe go back and check, hey, how'd you like this book? Did it end up being as good as you thought? Sometimes I might not pick everything that is good, but hey, I love doing this series.